the director of the International Labour Organization in South Africa. Mr. van Vuuren, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
Vic, can you tell us what led to this study of the farm workers' conditions in general in the first place?
I think there have always been a lot of reports emanating from either the employers or from the workers or from different parties as to the state of the working conditions on farms. And so after a debate in the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, it was suggested that we as the ILO, being an independent institution, should look to financing some research in this area. And this started in 2011, and this culminated in the releasing of a report this week. So it's been a long period of research, which was desk review and also interviews with farm workers and research into the actual farming communities in 8 of the 9 provinces.
What was the sample size?
The sample size varied. It was, well, I don't have the exact figures with me, but it was different farming communities and farmers in each of those 8 provinces, and the sample size was quite substantial.
Now, it's 4 years in the running, but what came out of the research?
I think one of the main factors that came out of the research is the fact that workers and the producers are exiting the agricultural sector, and that is of concern. And the report is suggesting that the government should take a more decisive role in looking at a value chain from the producers to the actual events happening with farm workers. The report deals with very sensitive areas of migration. It deals with the living conditions, the housing, but it also deals with the challenges that are being faced by the producers in the global markets. So it's an all-encompassing report.
Now, you talked about the living and working conditions of the workers. What was concerning about that in the report?
Well, one of the things that stands out is the housing, the evictions from farms, the conditions of housing, the transport relating for workers to get to and from their places of employment. That is nothing new, but it does point out that this is still a challenge and one that hasn't been adequately addressed up until now. We also look at the minimum wages and the seasonal workers and how one deals with the challenges of having seasonal workers. What do they do in non-seasonal time? And so the report is not only identifying challenges, but also making recommendations as to how this can be addressed.
Now, let's talk to me about those recommendations. What were some of them?
Well, I think first of all, improving the transport infrastructure for workers to get to and from their places of employment. Upgrading the housing both in the local towns that provide the accommodation for workers and where they are employed on the farms, that one needs to look at the standard of the conditions of the housing on the farms. In many areas we could find good examples, but as many good examples we'd find that there are bad examples. And so it's a matter of dealing with those problem areas.
Which provinces in the country face the most challenges with regards to work and living conditions of farm workers?
I think each of the provinces has its good and bad, but obviously some provinces have more farming activities than others. Your Western Cape area, your Limpopo, where there's a concentration of farms, is going to be where the bigger problems and challenges lie.
Mm-hmm. Now, were the farm workers very accessible to you when you were conducting the study, or were you met with some resistance by some of the farmers who did not want their farm workers to participate in the study?
No, in the most we were very pleasantly surprised that we were given access to farm workers in most areas. Sometimes there were logistical problems. But in the most, we were given accessibility to the workers in an environment that they could openly speak to the researchers. The research was conducted through researchers and academics through 5 different universities in South Africa. And so it wasn't the ILO itself that conducted the research. We engaged these independent researchers to go in and speak to workers in an environment that they were able to openly discuss their situation.
Mm-hmm. What will happen to the report now, Mr. van Vuuren?
This report is really to be a resource. We think it's an all-encompassing research document that covers most areas of the agricultural sector. We want to see it as a resource that people shouldn't just take out the things they like. you're going to find that a worker will be able to identify their issues, the farmers will identify their issues, but the idea is to try and give an all-encompassing report that people who have to take decisions in government and in other areas will have information at hand and see what the researchers are recommending to try and assist in the resolving of many issues.
21 years into democracy now, is the farm workers better off than what they were before?
I'd like to think that in many areas they are better off, but unfortunately in many areas they are worse off. And the example that I raised earlier of housing and the infrastructure and the future of the farm worker is certainly still a big issue that needs to be addressed.
Mr. van Vuuren, thank you so much. That was Vic van Vuuren, the ILO director in South Africa. Well, we'll be taking a break and we'll be right back with your sports news.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.